Do you think that having your husband or wife as a business partner would never work? Well, today we've got a married couple who've built a 7-figure Amazon business. Tell us how it's worked for them all the way from down under. Fair dinkum. Do you want to see how your listing or maybe competitors' listing rates as to best practices for listing optimization? Or maybe you want to compare a group of ASINs or Amazon products to see how they compare to each other. Maybe you want to see within seconds the top keywords for a single listing or a group of listings. You can do that and more with the Helium 10 tool Listing Analyzer. For more information, go to h10.me/listing analyzer. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Serious Sellers Podcast by Helium 10. I'm your host, Bradley Sutton, and this is the show that's a completely BS-free, unscripted, and unrehearsed organic conversation about serious strategies for serious sellers of any level in the e-commerce world. And we're talking to some people across the world, and like I did a few weeks ago, this is an episode I'm doing like at about 11 o'clock at night, and the last one I was in my my Japanese robe, my yukata, because that's usually what I wear at 11 p.m. at night. But now I'm sporting this sporty hoodie because if some of you podcast listeners out there might remember Celine Dior, who's been on the podcast a few times. Well, one of her brands is Vitae Apparel, and she was kind enough to send me. But Vitae Apparel, guys, she actually finally made clothes for that goes for guys too. So VITAE Apparel. I don't get, this is not an ad. This is not a hashtag ad, everybody, because I don't get any commission or anything. But this is like the comfiest hoodie I've ever had. But anyways. We have two guests from around the world who have never been on the show before. Like I said, Celine has been on a few times. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Yeah, thanks so much, Bradley, for having us on. We are a husband and wife team. Our names are Aiden and Alexandra. And yeah, we live in Perth, West Australia, and we're FBA sellers.
Yes, and that is part of what she said is why I had them on, because I like highlighting different dynamics in e-commerce. I have had married couples on here before. I've had, two brothers. I've had two sisters. I've had father-son combos on the podcast. And so, a question a lot of people have is like, man, can it really work if my spouse is involved or we just get on each other's nerves and anything? But it's actually interesting how you guys even came on my radar. I'm saying this in front of her husband. You slid into my DMs on Instagram, but it'll be okay, guys. This is not a bad story here. But tell me the story around that, because I think it's quite interesting.
Yeah, so we actually we've been longtime listeners of the Helium 10 podcast, like literally since we started selling on Amazon back in 2019, which really isn't that long ago, actually. But anyway, so we are also partnered with a company called 8Fig for our financing. And we listened to an episode where, Bradley, you had interviewed Dana, and she mentioned, and I think this might have been last year. It would have been last year in 2022. Yeah. And she was telling you a story about how there was this couple that is partnered with 8Fig and they live in Australia. And basically, like, we had an incredible Q4 in 2021 and really attributed that to like not ever having to go out of stock. Anyway, we listened to the episode and we were like, is that us? That has to be us. And then a couple months after we had heard that episode, we were talking about going to a 7-figure Amazon seller retreat in Bali, the one that's upcoming in June.
You guys only do things around figures, 8-fig, 7-fig. I mean, like, I'm going to go ahead and start a 6-fig company and then you'll definitely sign up, I guess, huh?
Yes. That's an interesting pattern. Yeah, that's a good pattern to have, I guess. So yeah, we heard that, Bradley, you were going to be coming to the retreat, and we more than likely won't be able to make it just due to timing things. Anyway, so we were
I'm sorry, guys. We're going to have to cut this podcast short. No. I'm very disappointed you guys can't come. I mean, it's in your neighborhood, guys. I mean, I think you can bring kids and everything. I mean, what a perfect, romantic second honeymoon, Amazon conference. Come on, guys. You can make it. But for the rest of you guys who are wondering what we're talking about, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but you can go to h10.me/Bali, h10.me/BALI. It's going to be a cool conference that it'll be my first time in Bali and my first time with this conference. Aiden, let's start with you. let's take it a little bit farther back. Like, where were you born and raised, and tell me about your life story a little bit.
Yeah, thanks, Bradley. I know my wife does talk a lot, so I don't really get an opportunity.
And I am gonna. My next question is like why your accents are so different. But let's just keep it with you for a little bit. Go ahead.
Yeah. So an easy story is Alex is American, I am Australian, and so born and raised in Western Australia. So I grew up in a little farming community 4.5 hours north of Perth called Mollawop. And my parents are farmers, and basically, grew up my whole life here and only spent a couple of years outside of the state. But and now we live in Perth full time.
As soon as you graduate, I don't know what you guys call it over there, but we call it high school over here. Like as soon as you graduated high school, did you just start working immediately back on the farm, or did you go on to university, or what did you do over there?
Yeah, so I actually pursued a career in the sporting world. So I was a semi-professional athlete in Australian rules football, and I did that for 10 years. And then sort of...
is that something that you do in high school? Like they have high school teams over there, and then you get scouted later? Or how does that even work over there? How do you get to that level?
Yep, basically that. So you play in the local leagues, and then, as you get older, then you move into... the state competition if you're good enough, and then from the state competition you'll be drafted into the top level. But
so for 10 years was that your main income?
No, that and working apprenticeships, and also in the sort of sales realm of work. So I spent probably 7 years in the trade industry, and then I spent probably 3-ish years working in sales. So that's a little bit of a change.
I'm just still trying to understand how you would get a chance to meet somebody American. So maybe Alex, if you can figure out how you met this apprenticing Australian rules footballing person in the middle of Australia, being an American.
Yeah. So we actually met when I studied, when I studied abroad in 2011. So I went to university in the States. I'm born and raised in Chicago, and studied abroad in Perth in West Australia. Just for a semester, and I became really, really close friends with Aiden's older brother, who's obviously not.
Oh, this is going to be
worse and worse.
Wow. Okay, this is one of those stories. Okay.
It's totally not like that. But yeah, so
okay.
My now brother-in-law. People ask us that all the time, by the way. So it was like a group of us that all stayed really close that semester after exchange. And Kurt and I just stayed really close friends. And I knew of Aiden and like always had a crush on him from afar. But it was like, oh, he's my friend's hot younger brother. He lives in Australia. It would never happen, blah, blah, blah. And then in 2016, Aiden was traveling throughout the US and Canada. And with Kurt. Long story short, I was living in Seattle at the time. And
what were you doing for work at that time?
So I was in fashion merchandising and buying. So I started my career working for Abercrombie Corporate in Columbus, and then moved to Seattle, where I actually worked for Amazon headquarters as a buyer, and then worked for Lululemon in Vancouver in Canada. Before moving to Australia. But so Aiden and I met while he was traveling, and I had said, like a few weeks before Aiden slid into my DMs, I had Kurt and I were like going out with some friends, and I was like, oh, I've always had a crush on your little brother. You would love to have me as a sister-in-law. And it was like totally a joke. And then like we went out and never talked about it again. And now we're related.
Yeah. Married, 2 kids.
Yeah.
Brother-in-law.
Yeah.
Awesome. What was the decision? Like, was it like not even a discussion at all where you guys would live, or like it had to be Australia, or was there any discussion like, all right, we got to take this relationship to the next step. We got to kind of, be together instead of long distance. How did that decision make America versus Australia?
So we were long distance for 2 years before I moved. And it was kind of always, I'm so sorry to my family who's maybe listening, but we kind of always were like, we're going to live in Australia. It's just like, it's such an incredible quality of life here. Obviously, you can get an incredible quality of life in the US too, but
Sure.
having lived in both countries, it's so much easier to be an entrepreneur here too. But yeah, at the time you were still playing football, and I didn't want you to have to give that dream up because you can only play that sport here. So
You finished football, I'm assuming, and then what were you guys doing to sustain yourselves then? Because a bachelor sure can get by doing this and that, but once you start a family, you need at least one full time regular job, whether it's the wife or the husband. So like, how did you guys? What did you guys do for money in the beginning?
We got I suppose it's quite a unique situation. We were living in Adelaide at the time, and we thought, like I was grinding away in the sales job, and it was some really good opportunities through there, but you could tell it was going to be more and more taxing. And we sat down with each other and just thought, what life do we want? How do we want to live it? And went through like this whole list of like who we want to be and what do we want to achieve and how do we want to feel in life and all those type of things. And, we end up coming out like time is really important to us. And with time, how do you get more time? So then we sort of, from that, we said, okay, well, I'm ready to finish up playing sport. I've had enough. I'm all done. I'm not going to the next level. And then we said, okay, where do we want to live in Australia? And then that was the next step. We ended up moving back to Perth, or back to Western Australia. And then we said, we really want to be entrepreneurs. That's what our gut feeling is. That's who we want to be. We've started Amazon. We really need to like go fully into it. And we actually moved to my parents' farm / holiday house in Gelton. And we lived there for 8 months.
Yeah, we lived there for 8 months with the intention of basically like just focusing all in on our Amazon business. And and like,
so did that come from because you worked at Amazon and you knew what people were doing, or how did that, because that's not, in our world, probably all our listeners, like, selling on Amazon is like a no-brainer, but that's not necessarily a common thing that couples are like, let's sell on Amazon. Like they don't even, I would say 95% of the population doesn't even know exists. So is that where it came from? Because you knew, because of your experience with Amazon?
Sort of, not really. That more just reaffirmed it. So when I moved to Australia, it was August 2018, and we were already pregnant with our first daughter. And I kind of just like, we both kind of just knew that we were, like Aiden said, going to be entrepreneurs. And when we were living in Adelaide, I must have like clicked on some ad for a course. And so like all these webinars started popping up, and I just went to a couple like courses, how to sell on FBA, Amazon, blah, blah, blah. And then that's what clicked in my memory of like, oh, right, like this is a thing that people do, back from my corporate days. And we built the business while we were our first year as parents.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's sort of just super unknown. Like I was working on my parents' farm so we could have income to let this entrepreneurial like venture sort of come about and see like what was going to happen. And the more we went into it, the better it became. And then it sort of reaffirmed like, okay, well, this is the direction we need to head in. So,
and then through the course that we actually first bought to learn how to sell on Amazon, we shared our success story with them, and they brought us on as coaches and consultants. And so then when we moved off of Aiden's parents' farm, after those 8 months, then that became our living income while we were still building the business.
It takes a few months to get, to really get started. I mean, let alone make money. I mean, just to develop products. I'm assuming you started in Amazon USA?
Yeah, yes. Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, so then from that time you decide to start selling on Amazon, we're talking months before probably you launch your first product.
Yeah.
So were you still did you have money saved up? Or were you still doing like side jobs here and there? Or how did you guys survive?
That was when so we started learning at the end of 2018, and all of 2019, that's when Aiden was doing his sales job and a semi-professional athlete. Then we moved to Perth, then we moved to Aiden's parents' farm, and that was when we were like, the focus is to basically minimize living expenses and like work.
Yeah. What kind of farm is it? Just curious.
Yeah, so it's wheat and sheep.
It's what?
Wheat and sheep, so grain and sheep.
So, okay. So, okay. I thought you were talking about a specific kind of sheep. I was like, I've never heard of that sheep. It's two different things we're talking about here. Okay. You see, Alex, you gotta translate a little bit here.
No.
Okay, I got it. All right, cool.
Yeah, specifically it's grain and sheep, and they own about 5 farms in the region they're in. So yeah, about 20,000 acres of farmland.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you guys still selling the very first product that you launched?
Yes, we are.
That's count yourselves. That's a blessing right there. A lot of people, they usually fail on their first product. So.
Hang on, that's a lie. No, we're not. Yeah. Our first product launch was a total failure.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted. See, either way, it was. That's why I like that question, because either way, there is no bad answer here. So, all right, that's even better. Tell me about this terrible product launch you guys did.
Yeah, see, we've even forgotten about it because we've just moved on.
You block it from your memory. Yeah, I like it.
Every bad experience, just block it.
So that we launched that product end of 2019. And it was a total flop. We really did not do, high demand.
Since you're not selling anymore, can you tell us what it is?
Yes, we can. It was, have you seen those pink rose quartz jade rollers? It's a beauty product.
Yes. So I know exactly what that is.
Yeah. So they're super saturated now. I mean, they were super saturated when we launched.
No, I'm saying.
And I thought that I could create a point of difference because we sell private label. I thought that I could create a point of difference around it by adding a lavender silk eye pillow with it. So it's like a beauty ritual experience, and also when we went back and looked at the data, it had really, really strong conversion, So I think I just didn't do a good enough job learning SEO, to be honest.
Yeah. Our experience we had no experience. So it was just trial and error. And now we look back at it. Back then, I reckon we could have hacked it. But now, then when we started, it was like, I don't even know how that we even got that thing to.
Our photography was horrible. We did it ourselves. We did all the things you're not supposed to do.
It was just.
How much would you say you lost though? Because I always say that sure you might lose a little bit, but obviously the experience is priceless. But you invest $10,000, it's not like you lose $10,000 all the time, because you still sell. Maybe you lose money on profit, but did you ever calculate how much money you lost on that?
We've honestly never calculated it, because to us it's like, that's a waste of time.
Okay, so see, that's important to me, because what that tells me is that you guys, it probably wasn't even on the conversation to give up at that point.
No.
The people who start calculating, oh my goodness, I lost $7,333 is, those are the people who know exactly how much they lost. It's like, hey, we're not going to go forward with this product. Doesn't matter how much money we lost. We know what we did wrong. Let's keep going. I like that. I like that attitude. So then you started over, and then your next product. What did you do something different about how you chose the niche that you're going to get into? How you launched it? What was different about product number 2?
So product number 2 was the product that laid the foundation for our whole business, and we built our brand around it. It honestly was just a product that intuitively I just kept going back to. And then when we looked, because for our brand, we are the customer. And that's really lucky. Not a lot of people get to luck into that. And it was just something that we noticed was missing from the space. And we verified it with our coach at the time. And she was like, yeah, go for it. Now it's super saturated. But yeah, so it was just something that we as consumers knew was missing on Amazon.
All right. So then a little bit more data driven, maybe hopefully paying more attention to Helium-10 and the keywords and which ones to focus on and things like that. Now, let's just fast forward to today or last year. We just ended a few months ago. What did you end 2022 in gross sales?
Yeah. So we
roughly?
Yeah, so we ended in 1.2 million.
Awesome.
So yeah, first year we did 100,000. Second year, 700, just over 700, and last year went to 1.2. Um, it's just amazing because like the more we grow as individuals, the more the business grows.
Yeah, totally.
So
Now, is this all in all these sales you're talking about? Is this all in the USA marketplace? You selling in any other marketplace or a website or anything like that?
no, just all US.
Okay.
We've built out omni-channel to Shopify, but we haven't really got that going yet. So,
Okay.
but yeah, 99.99% last year was US Amazon.
Now, are you still putting in time in farm work as well?
I like to keep my finger on the pulse because I'd love to put some of our wealth in farming land. So every year we like to go out. We'll go and help out for a couple of weeks, put in some crop, and then sort of ground in, have a refresher with our brain and our business. And like, it's amazing sitting on a tractor or just being out in the fresh country air really brings in new ideas. That's where they should be doing the seller summits and
Come to the farm.
yeah.
I just have this, especially since your romantic story. If you had lived in America, you guys totally could have met on farmersonly.com.
Oh,
We got you don't have to be lonely. Farmersonly.com. Okay, I don't know why I'm thinking of these commercials now, but they don't have that in Australia, I don't think.
No, but there's a show.
Farmer wants a wife.
Yeah, there's
Are you serious?
dead serious.
Oh my goodness, I love it. All right. Anyways, the reason I was asking is just like, but the main income now is that Amazon, for like your family, or is it still other things?
Yeah, we choose to keep probably about 95% of the money in the business, the money from the business into the business, and we just take our part at the end of the year, but the rest comes from coaching, consulting,
Okay.
different parts.
Okay.
So, yeah, basically how we see it, Bradley, is the faster we grow, the faster we can reach our goal. So the more money in the business, we can build more products, we can build out Shopify, we can do all those things where our brand is going. But if we take too much away from it, then it's a slower progression.
Yeah.
Tell me about the makeup of the day-to-day operations of your Amazon business. I mean, this is a 7-figure business, not your main thing. You got some farming work you're doing, you got consulting that you're doing, you have 2 kids, you've got a family. There might be people out there. All right, well, wondering how you guys juggle all that. So like, can you break it down? I don't need to know every single task, who does what, but can you kind of break it down how you guys divide and conquer, as it were, or maybe you have staff, etc.
Yeah. So the 2 main things that we outsource are PPC and account management. We outsourced PPC when we started getting to like 30K months in revenue. We just realized there's other experts that can like take that branch and run with it. And then everything else we do. I mean, we have contractors that do our photography. We write our own listings. We look at analytics, but like, yeah, it's a really nice role division that we have. I would say like Aiden is definitely CEO. Like we always joke like Aiden can drive the ship and I can't, but I can.
Tractor, we should say.
Yeah, with a tractor. Yeah. And I could help build it. So it's like, I'm kind of the creative, numbers, analytical, like that piece of the puzzle and like putting together, just our creative content, creative design for products. And then Aiden works with our suppliers and essentially is like COO, basically.
Suppliers, logistics, inventory, and then basically like high level thinking of where we're going with the brand. So, and then I annoy my wife every 2 seconds of the day to tell her we should be doing this or we need to move in this direction.
What happens when, anybody who's been married knows that you don't always agree on everything, but whether it's partners or whether it's married, whether your partner is your spouse, how do decisions get made when there's like a path that one person wants to take and somebody, the other person wants to take a different path?
Do you want to do that one or?
I think it really depends on.
We fight to the death.
Sometimes.
And I never win, Bradley.
Honestly, it depends on like how well I'm looking after my mindset, if I'm being super honest. Like if I'm doing like a crap job at looking after my mental health and like my emotional stability as a person and as a woman, I'm harder to work with, and I know that. So I think like we just have very intentionally curated times throughout the week where we make sure like, hey, we're talking about like all the PC things during this time, or like we're talking about all of the high level vision stuff during this time, and just making sure that we always like actually on the calendar have an invite to like a container to make sure that important stuff gets talked about.
Yeah, I think you learn along the way with entrepreneurship that when you are building a business or you've acquired a business or whatever you're doing, that it does integrate into your personal life, no matter how much you try and not let it. And I think you just got to be a bit more flexible of how it does flow in and flow out, and just making sure all parts of your life are sort of that balance. But yeah, I think people don't really quite get that, that's like your kind of like your wealth generator, and you're working as a team to build that wealth generator, and it has to cross over a little bit to the personal life. So, I think we just learned that when we need space, we need space. When we don't need space, we, keep the flow going. But yeah.
One of the reasons, there's many of them, why the majority of people in the Amazon space, men or women, are usually just in it by themselves is sometimes they're like, oh no, my girlfriend, my significant other, my husband, my boyfriend, whatever, like there's no way we would just fight all the time. We're like, I can never run a business with them. But this is proof, guys, that it can, it can work. Taking it back a little bit to some Helium 10s, favorite Helium 10 tool or strategy that you guys use on your business?
Oh, Cerebro is the best.
Yeah, by far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cerebro just tells you the whole story.
You said you've been avid listeners of the podcast. Any favorite guests that you've had, or something that was game changing for you guys that you heard from somebody that we had on the show?
Yes, I love
Definitely.
listening. I can think of like 2 instances where we just like got this really literally game changing piece of information. One, when we needed a new supplier for that first good product that we launched. It's like an episode from like 2019 or 2020. And I think it was, I forget who it was, but he took you through the method of how he uses Alibaba to find quality suppliers. And that
was Kian. Yes.
Yes. That changed everything for us. We find all our suppliers using that method. And then the second one that I could think of personally was talking about FBM. Back when, because our products are non-essential, like if you remember back in 2020, the non-essential inventory freeze.
Mm-hmm.
We just learned a lot of really good pointers from that episode.
Personally, I'd probably listen to an episode every 2 to 3 days of yours. For me, because I came from a completely different background where I was, focused on being an athlete and, in the trade industry and those type of things. I was nothing to do with e-commerce or how products even worked in that way. So I actually learned from your podcast how to actually how to build our business, what to be looking at, getting all the information from lots of different sellers through who you interviewed. And I just would listen to it all the time. And it just it just built my knowledge so quickly. And you've had some of our mentors on there, like we had Kellyanne and Paul, that you Paul lately. And like just different PPC strategies and just like, I guess, little hacks, as you guys call it, to just how to like improve just one little thing. And that's sort of taking our business to the next levels.
Cool. Well, as you guys know, on the podcast, we have our 60-second tips. Used to be 30-second tips, but you've learned, and from those. So now it's time to pass it on. So you've been in the game for a few years now. So what is something that you think is somewhat unique that you guys are doing? And it doesn't have to be about Helium 10. Doesn't have to be about Amazon. It could be a life hack or something. having a newborn baby and running a business, or it could be some cool PPC tip. But why don't each of you give a 30 to 60-second tip right now to pay it back to all those who or to the podcast that you learned from as well.
Yeah.
Pay it forward, I should say, not pay it back.
Yeah. I think the biggest game changer for us has been learning to differentiate the difference between income and wealth. So many people, when they start an Amazon business, they're like, or any e-commerce business, they're like, I want to quit my job. And I say to them, don't. Have an exit strategy, build to exit, keep your job, allow that to be the thing that pays for the groceries, pays for the rent, the mortgage, whatever. And then build your business on the side, exit for multi 6, 7, whatever figures, which is ultimately going to change your life versus leaving a job and then like putting so much pressure on the business to then be the thing that puts bread on the table.
I like it. Aiden, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say mine is completely to do with mindset. Like we talk about hacks all the time. Like I don't think we need another hack, but that's what we got Kevin King for and those great people.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's all to do with mindset. So like every time you come across a barrier, it's only to help you learn and grow. So like if you go through that barrier and you learn from that and you grow from that, your business becomes better on the other side. So to me, I guess my wisdom would be your business can only grow as much as you grow as a person. So that's basically my
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what would you say to somebody out there, man or woman, maybe, they kind of think that, I probably would be stronger and be able to do more and accomplish more if my significant other was in it with me. Like, what's some words of advice for those who may be reluctant on how to get that started? Like, obviously, you guys have been working on this for years. We can't compress all of what you've learned into 2 minutes here, but what would be your best advice for those people?
Be willing to listen to the other person, and really, if there's one person in the world that you can trust to build a business alongside, it's the person who's your partner, right? Yeah. And yeah, just be willing to listen and patience.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. I would say leaving your ego at the door is a big one, because like you got two great brains, two great energy, two great bodies, like put them all together and you got a winning combination. If you're going to marry someone, that's like your better half of you, right? Or more of you. So if you leave your ego at the door and you don't want to fight and bicker about things and just like want to grow life, then yeah, you can have great success with each other.
What's another thing that you guys have that's unique, but there's a lot of people out there, married or not, there's a lot of people who live outside of the United States are like, hey, I worry about, running a business where, I don't have boots on the ground. So have you guys run into any obstacles, being in Australia, having products manufactured in China, and then the products are being sold in USA, like, with inventory and shipping? And if so, like, how have you overcome them, or is it pretty smooth sailing for you?
Honestly, like the biggest hiccup for us has been navigating international tax and finding the right teams to help us do that, I think.
Yeah. We've had like little things like out of stock, like a product going down for no reason at all. But like as you look at it, like the search volume has gone down and all that stuff, like in the micro level of the US has changed because of the recession, all that stuff, right? So, but I would say, right, yeah, tax has been the pain because it's like everyone's giving you different information. So we're always trying to work that one out.
Do you have to pay like some kind of tax in Australia as well, for even though you're selling only in America?
It just depends on where your company is set up. So like, for us, because we're both tax residents of Australia, our tax flows into Australia, even though we're an LLC. And then we have again, this is obviously not tax advice, but we have an Australian company here. And so, yeah, and that's again, like putting those pieces together through lots of different consultations and partners.
Important to ask professionals, not to try and just like,
yes,
I'll just do whatever I want. And then if the government wants to stop me, let them know that's not something you guys should mess with. All right. Well, this has been a great story. Like I didn't know almost any of this, before, but I knew it was going to be kind of cool just from your story. Like how cool is that you just randomly, they didn't even say your name, on it, but you're like, wait a minute, I think they're talking about me on this podcast, So that was so cool. If people want to reach out to you, find you on the interwebs, how can they find you guys?
Yeah. Connect with us on Instagram. We're open books. People DM us all the time about our journey, and we love sharing. I'm at Alexandra X Wyatter, WIATR.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure mine is.
Aiden's what's my Instagram handle?
What is it? I would just reach out to me by email. It's probably easier. So tropo2@hotmail.com. Yes, I still
fellow Hotmail user.
I still got Hotmail.
Yes. Well, at least you didn't say like AOL or something. That would have been more for my days. Anyways, I'm still crossing my fingers that you guys might change your mind and make a last second trip out there to Bali. If not, maybe out here in the States, at one of our conferences that we're attending. But thank you very much. It's great to see, married couple thriving. And hopefully you, I don't hope, I know that this episode is going to serve as inspiration to hopefully some of our other listeners out there. So thanks. And we'll be definitely reaching out to you next year to see how your journey is going.